Okay, we're there.
And this is the Wisdom Table, coming to you from the Grand Houses residence on 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue in Harlem, USA. I'm Brother
And
Leroy,
this is the
your host
Wisdom
for the
Table,
Wisdom Table, actually
coming to you from
co-host with a
the
number of
Grand
young ladies
Houses
from the
residence on
East Harlem area,
125th
and
Street
we're in,
and
once
Amsterdam
again, on the
Avenue
west
in
side,
Harlem,
and that's
USA.
Grand Houses. We're
And
very
this
happy
is
to
the
bring to
Wisdom
you a
Wisdom
program
Table,
that
actually
reflects the
co-hosted
needs of the residents, not only of the Grand Houses, but also of the entire community and the listening area covered by this internet. The wisdom table does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the resident association. Neither does it reflect anything of the management of this nature development. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program live in living color and by Zoom today. We have one of our favorite interviewees, and that is Dr. Jennifer Daniels. She's based in Panama, and she has lots of information for us. We've asked her to come on and give us some clarity on COVID, like to break down or define what cases are, um, you know, the whole thing that they run after holiday, and we need clarity. So, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, thank you for joining us on the Wisdom Table.
You're welcome.
We can start with defining defining the when they say that they have increased cases. Is that a matter of testing, or is that a matter of people who have active symptoms and about to go into the hospital, whatever?
Neither. Neither. So increase in cases just means an increase in a number of people who have a positive test. That's it. That's all it means.
So so when they say cases and that there's an increase in cases, this could I'm playing it back to you. This could be a situation where 50 people who never had the test before go for the test after a big event in Florida
I'm
or
having
Texas.
difficulty. I'm having difficulty hearing you because there's a huge echo.
Okay. Okay, let's see if we can solve it this way. Is this
That's
better?
good. That's better. Yes.
Okay. The um, the question the question is, there's an event in Texas. It could
Hmm.
be anything, a swim event, etc. And people are tested after the event. They never were tested before, and they test 50, 25, let's say 100 people test, and 100 come out positive. Is that what they're talking about, an increase?
Right. And just as you point out, that is not an increase because those people were not tested prior to the event. So there's no evidence that any of them became positive as a result of the event.
So the question really is, how do we make sense of what they're talking about? Is this in is this presented to the public in a way that is geared to making us think that there's this massive increase in cases, or what?
Well, as a thinking adult, you have to say the conclusion is there's an increase in cases. You have to ask yourself, what information do I need to know in order to for me to decide that there's been an increase in cases? The answer is you would need to have a group of people tested before and after to see if there's an increase. You don't have that information, therefore you have no basis for deciding there's an increase. They have not presented you with any information supporting their conclusion. They have provided you with information irrelevant to the conclusion that they want you to believe. So
Okay, and
we are left with a game of Simon Says. It's so because I say it's so. they've done what amounts to a bunch of, arm waving, gesticulation, and signifying, but you have not received any information relevant or necessary to deciding if there's an increase in anything.
Okay. So if you were presenting, let's say you were presenting let's deal with your background, medical school and the Wharton School of Business. Wharton School of Business is going to give
Oh
you,
no, let's go further. I went to Harvard University undergraduate, University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, Wharton Business School. And I completed Wharton Business School and medical school in 4 years instead of 6.
damn.
I may not be the brightest bulb in the pantry, but there is a little bit of light there.
Thank you for the correction. And the point is that your familiarity with numbers, if
Yeah.
you were presenting the information that the CDC comes up with, how would it be presented to the public, to the American public?
Okay, so first of all, the question is, do you want to empower the public to make a decision? If the answer is yes, you give them information relevant to making a decision. So what's the decision we want the public to make? Well, first of all, they don't want you to make any decision. So they're giving you information irrelevant to decision making. So at the end of the day, they present you with all this data and you look at it, you're like, I don't know. And they're like, great, we're going to tell you what you know. So here's what you need to know. And so whenever someone asks you to believe something, like let's say I say, hey, Leroy, I'm giving you $1 million and I gave it to you. Well, you want to know, where is it, right? Which account did it go to? And if I tell you I gave you this money and I can't tell you what account I put it in that has your name on it, or that I can give you access to, then you're going to come back to me and say, you ain't giving me nothing. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So it's the same with this situation. So the first thing that they're telling you is that we have a pandemic. Well, what's a pandemic? I had to go look it up. Do you know that the definition of pandemic has been changing drastically? They just legislated a whole new definition like 3 years ago. So a pandemic is an illness that exists in several countries, period. It can be one case in 3 different countries. It's a pandemic.
Mm.
So now you know the definition of pandemic, which means to me, it's nothing to panic over, because we got a diabetes pandemic, we got a pregnancy pandemic, we got a lot of pandemics. Let's talk about what's your pandemic. So pandemic is a meaningless term right now. It doesn't mean any. You don't need a certain number of cases. There's no threshold number of cases to call something a pandemic. So the word pandemic does not signify the magnitude of anything. Okay, so we're going to throw that out the window. Mm-hmm. What you really want to know as an individual is there something that's causing an increased number of deaths in the United States? And if so, what is it? Right? Are we clear on that?
Yes.
And then if you can figure that out, the next step is how to protect yourself as an individual or the public. So the first question, is something causing an increased number of deaths? If we look at the table of data the CDC gives us, we need to know what's an increased cause of what is there an increased number of people dying? The table does not give us that number. Instead, they give us the total deaths. But I want to draw your attention. We can just take 1 week here and it'll blow your mind. This is the week of April 11th, 2020. They're telling us there are 77,935 deaths in the United States, and that's 140% of normal. Fine. So what we don't know is how many of those 75,000 deaths are excess. Let's do the calculation. So we have to take 75,000, the 140% of the number we want. So we have to divide 75,000 by 1.4. Great, we get a number. And then we multiply that number by 0.4 because we know we have 40% more of that. Once we do that calculation, we have 22,267 excess deaths for that week. All right. So now we know the number, there are excess deaths, and that's how many there were. But wait, how many COVID deaths were there that same week? 15,719 COVID deaths were reported that week. But wait, we know that those deaths, that number is based on symptoms and testing. We know from Wuhan, and we have figures from the United States, that at least 25% of those cases, the virus was not present. The virus was not present. That means of that number, 15,719, at least 25% could not possibly have been caused by the virus because it wasn't there. But wait, we have a test, the virus test. So my mother went into the nursing home 3 weeks ago. Thank God she's out now, but she went in. And they said to her, we have got to test you for COVID. You must take the COVID test before you're admitted. But we have to inform you that if you test positive for the COVID test, there is a 50% chance you do not have the virus and the virus is not present. Okay. Important information. We got this straight from the source, right? Government source, nursing home, legal disclosure. So if we take 100%, subtract the 25%, leaving 75%, divide 75% by 2, because half of those are not there either. That's 37.5% where the virus we know is absent. 25%, we know the virus is absent because of the epidemiology. 62.75% of all reported COVID cases, the virus was not present. Therefore, not the cause of death. So that week, we had 15,719 cases. We multiply that by 0.3725, and what do we get? We get that only 5,855 deaths were caused that week from the virus, because we're scientific, logical minds, right? The virus is not present. It could not have caused the death. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yes.
So
if it's not
there was
present.
only 5,855 cases where the virus was present and there was a death. And we're generously presuming causality, by the way. I'm being generous with that one. So what does that mean? 26% of the excess deaths, at best, 26% of the excess deaths could have been caused by the virus. What caused the other 74% of excess deaths? Not the virus. So there are excess deaths happening in the United States, but we can say, again, based on the CDC's figures, I'm taking this right off their chart. You can go look at it. You know, it's right there for the whole world to see. March 11th, and you can do this for a lot of the different weeks, and you'll find the same thing, that the COVID cases legitimately are accounting for about 25% or less of the excess death in the United States. What is causing those other deaths?
Okay.
So then you have to ask yourself, whoa, wait a minute. If only 25% of the excess deaths in the United States are being caused by this thing, then we're ignoring 75% more or less of what's really causing the death. And even more precisely, this thing they're talking about, COVID, as represented by their testing, is not a threat to health at all.
Okay. Where have you found or seen, and I've seen some of them, doctors who are still in the United States saying basically the same thing, basically the same thing.
Right. A lot of cases. I mean, on YouTube, you can find them all over the place. A doctor in Texas just came out and said, hey, I don't know what they're talking about, but everyone come to my office with COVID-like symptoms. He's giving them Zithromax and hydroxychloroquine, and everyone's getting better. He has a 0% hospitalization rate.
Okay, that brings up this. President Trump has said some things that they have made mockery of him. The
Oh, wait,
hydrochloroquine.
excuse me. This guy he's giving them a steroid, a common asthma steroid inhaler. He's just giving them that. He's not even giving them hydrochloroquine because he can't. It's not available. He's just having them inhale a common asthma inhaler, 2 puffs, 4 times a day, and bam, everyone's getting better in hours. So this syndrome is something that is easily treated with zero hospitalization, zero mortality. Doctors have been ordered as of the beginning of this pandemic not to treat these people, to turn them away, to refuse to treat them until they get sick enough for a ventilator, and then put them on a ventilator, which the authorities know has a 90% death rate.
Damn.
So you have someone with a condition that if you treat them with a simple steroid inhaler or hydroxychloroquine or Zithromax, the list is getting longer and longer every day of what this thing responds to, people will do just fine and recover. But doctors have been given orders to withhold therapy of any kind until the person progresses to where they are put on a ventilator, and then the ventilator, we know, kills them, 80% death rate. So doctors have been compelled to follow a treatment protocol that results in an 80% death rate rather than one that creates a 0% death rate. So this death is totally manufactured.
In
other words, you can call it killing if you want to.
I'm going back to your mom. In our last interview,
right,
you mentioned the fact that the taste of the food and whatnot. The mother said, "How come this tastes like dishwater or something like that?"
Right. The soup tastes like dishwater, and the food tastes like expired food bank food. It was all processed in cans. It came from cans, and it all tasted like it was spoiled and out of date.
Okay, you have people who are okay in this audience.
And they gave her no vegetables, not allowed any fresh vegetables or any fresh fruits, and they gave her tap water, no purified water.
I'm laughing because you have to laugh to keep from crying.
And what the family is not allowed to bring in any food. We even offered to cook the food, bring it there. They could give it to her. No, not allowed, not allowed.
What about the situation in New York? I haven't followed it that closely.
She was in New York. She's in New York.
Wow.
My mother's in New York, and this is what. And she went to one of the better nursing homes. You know, mom's got super duper insurance. You know, she's no schlock here. Her bills are paid and then some. So she actually went to one of the better nursing homes, and the nursing homes were following protocol. This is what they were told to do.
What about the charge that the governor, in the very beginning of this lockdown, directed COVID patients to be put into the nursing homes?
Now that's a bunch of drama because we know that COVID is not causing the deaths. Okay, that's irrelevant. It's a piece of drama. We've just got the data here. I just showed it to you. 75% of the deaths are not due to COVID anyway. They're due to feeding people dish soap, expired rotten food, and not allowing any fruits and vegetables or any sunshine.
Okay.
So whenever they try and confuse you, they throw a whole bunch of data at you and get you all emotionally riled up. Oh, that bad governor. Oh, he did this. Oh, he shouldn't have done that. And you get you all off subject.
Right.
But once you look at these numbers from the CDC, you can see that being COVID positive does not have any predictive value when it comes to excess death.
Yeah. How is it explained where a guy in his 40 years of age, he goes in, he's supposed to have COVID, he goes in, and within 2 days, he's gone?
Exactly. It's just what I told you. You deny him any therapy that might give him relief, then you put him on a ventilator, and the ventilator kills him. This is very straightforward.
The term blowing their lungs out is what I understand in the ventilator. Explain what the ventilator does in those cases as
Okay,
you
okay.
understand it.
Right. So the ventilator has pressure. It pushes oxygen or air into the lungs under pressure. If you have lungs that are diseased with emphysema or pneumonia, those lungs are stiff like leather
Hmm.
and they require more pressure to push that air in.
Wow.
And that pressure is a certain pressure setting. If you take you or me, we have healthy lungs. Healthy lungs are very, very soft. They're super soft, like uncooked bread dough. And you put the same pressure and you're going to explode that healthy lung. And that's what has been happening. The pressure settings for emphysema and pneumonia have been used for these COVID people who basically have healthy lungs. And it collapses their lung, it blows a hole in it.
Okay. Talk about blood clots. They talk about blood clots occurring in some patients.
Okay, again, what they're doing is muddying the waters. Now they're expanding a definition of COVID symptoms to pretty much include every single disease under the sun. And now they're
Oh,
expanding it to include heart disease. Now they're expanding it to include all kinds of other diseases. I mean, you look at
okay.
in Europe, they've expanded it to include chronic fatigue syndrome. They got a post-viral syndrome. So what they're doing is trying to push every single button you have about how dangerous this virus is. But if you focus on the data produced by the CDC, you can see that this virus, its presence, does not predict excess death. It was only
Okay.
present in 26% of excess deaths.
Okay. Now, what is it about this virus or a virus not being able to exist in certain temperatures like 86 degrees? I've heard that. Can
So
you
that's all
clarify that?
made up. It's all made up. It's all made up. If it can't exist in 86 degrees, how could it exist in your body at 98.6? Game over. No possibility. It can't infect you. Let's all go home. We're done, right? So they're trying to make up information here to control the population. Oh, it can't exist in summer. That's why we have to lock you down in winter. Oh, wait, it can exist in summer. So now we're going to lock you down in summer. So this is
Right.
all made up stuff. There's no research to support any of this stuff that they're saying. But even if you listen to what they're saying, let's say you believe that it can't exist at temperatures over 76, you're like, well, my body's 98.6. I guess that makes me pretty safe. I don't need to take any precautions at all. So all they're doing is making up stuff as they go along. But again, if you look at the CDC numbers, you know there is no risk of death from this COVID positivity. Zero risk of death.
Okay.
But people
Now,
are dying. Wait, people are dying.
right?
75% of the excess deaths, where are they coming from? They're coming from medical intervention. Who's dying? People who are receiving medical therapy. So, in other words, people in the nursing home, they're in government custody receiving medical intervention. People in the
Okay.
intensive care units, government custody, because it's a government facility, all hospitals are regulated by the government. They're receiving government directed care. Who's living? Babies, people 1 year old and under, whose parents are keeping them at home and not taking them to the doctor's visits. 33% drop in mortality.
Hmm.
Mm, mm. Skipping those well baby visits, huh? No medical
Now listen.
intervention. Mm.
Now listen. They have included they what I see as a consumer. I'm not an expert, and I'm not claiming that.
Right.
But you hear different news reports, and there's this exotic disease that only
Kawasaki's disease.
children get.
Kawasaki's disease. In kids.
Yeah.
No, again, made up, made up. Kawasaki's disease was around when I was in medical school back in 1979 to 83. Do you know how many cases of Kawasaki's disease we saw at the University of Pennsylvania Children's Hospital? In the
One.
4 years I was there, zero, zero, zero. Another fantasy disease to get people agitated and upset. We know, again, all look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. The death rates for people under 1 year of age, moms have been keeping away from the doctor because of, stay at home, blah, blah, blah. And death rates down 30%.
Okay. I went out this morning with 8 pairs of gloves on,
Yep.
2 masks,
Yep.
a bandana,
Yep.
and some goggles.
Yep.
What would your thought be if you saw me in that condition?
I would turn around and walk the other way. Oh my God. I'd walk the other way. So this dude's
Oh
got a lot going
man.
on here. I know hugs and kisses there.
You're tuned in to GHCR,
Hold on a
Grant
second.
House's Community Radio, home of the Community News Service.
This is the Wisdom Table, and our guest is straight with no chaser, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, and she gave some of her educational background and any number of classes and practical experience she's had. In fact, in other interviews, when she talks about her life in her own clinic, that's a story in itself. All right, comorbidity.
Okay. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. Let's take comorbidity and break it down in English. It's something else that equally could have caused the death.
Give that again.
Something else that equally could have been responsible for the death.
Okay.
That's a comorbidity. Now, let me just take you through a doctor's day, okay? This is a doctor. He's in the hospital, maybe intensive care unit, emergency room, whatever. Let's actually make it good. He's in the intensive care unit or on a general medical floor. He's been taking care of this patient for, 5-6 days. Patient dies. Ooh. Patient's dead. Now, the patient has a diagnosis of hypertension, diabetes, bed sore, emphysema. And he happens to test positive for COVID. Well, first of all, let's leave COVID out of this. Pre-COVID, what would happen? He's got these 4 things. Either one, they're all comorbidities. Any one of them can be the cause of death. He has got to pick one to put on the death certificate.
Right.
A lady in a very tight short skirt with a white jacket and clipboard wiggles up to him and says, "Doctor, your patient has been put in these different diagnostic related groups, DRG categories, and we are reimbursed based on these categories." The doctor says, And she says, "And if you put this cause of death, we get paid $10,000. And if you put that cause of death, we get paid $20,000. And if you put this cause of death," she goes to the whole list. And she says, could you see how this death might be the $20,000 diagnosis?" And doctor says, "Yeah, sounds good to me." So that $20,000 diagnosis gets put down as the cause of death. Now, the doctor knows, he knows in the back of his mind that if he puts down the lowest cause of death, his hospital is going to go out of business. He's going to have to do more fundraisers for the hospital, and maybe he'll even lose the privileges. Who knows? So he wants to cooperate, and he always puts down the highest cause of death. The highest paying cause of death is what? Heart disease. That's why it's the number 1 cause of death in the United States. Whenever there's 4 different causes of death to put down, the doctor always picks heart disease because it's the highest reimbursement. Okay. Now, enter COVID. Enter COVID. Same doctor, same lady in tight skirt with the clipboard and the white jacket. And now the patient tests COVID positive. And so she wiggles up to the doctor. "Excuse me, doctor. If it's a COVID death, we get paid $39,000. I don't think we want to use that $20,000 cause of death anymore." The doctor says, "Yep, I get you. COVID it is." So this is how death certificates are filled out.
Where's this money coming from? The government or
Yes.
the insurance?
Both.
When they passed the stimulus, was that kind, to your knowledge, was that kind of money included in that package?
No. This was policy. It's totally different. This is a policy decision that was made uh, when it was decided that COVID was a was going to be a pandemic. Notice when
Mm,
they declared the pandemic from COVID, there were no COVID deaths.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's okay. All right. The let's go to what they don't tell us when they are alerting us to this pandemic. They talk about gloves, they talk about masks, they talk about I don't know, goggles. Sometimes they tried to push that for a minute, and they do not say. When I say they, I never heard anything come from a government voice saying here are preventive measures as it relates to building the immune system. Share with
They
us
don't
what.
believe in the immune system. The immune system doesn't exist. So there is no belief in the immune system. And you have to fundamentally believe that, understand that, rather. They don't believe in the immune system, and they do not believe in your sovereignty as an individual and your ability to make decisions. So, since your immune system is incompetent to defend you in health matters, the government has to. And since you are incompetent to defend yourself, the government has to. So it's all about a power grab by the government. And you, uh, as a citizen, have to fundamentally believe in your own personal incompetence, not only of your immune system, but of your mental reasoning faculties as well. And so all you're left to do is believe whatever the government says.
Mm.
So that's really what's going on here.
And that's what's happening in terms of going in circles I go into. I'm talking about social, pardon me, social circles.
Right.
Everyone has bit into this thing. You can expose them to elderberry. You can expose them to D3.
Right,
I'm
right.
talking
But
about.
stop right now. All of that is unnecessary because it doesn't exist. It's made up bullshit, and all the excess deaths are caused by the government killing people. The question is, are we going to stand by and see the mass slaughter of Americans that makes 9/11 look
Wow.
like a playground game? That's the question
Wow.
here. Are we going to stand back with our hands folded and allow our government, in whatever guise, or if it's not the government, the deep state, whoever they are we going to allow them to murder Americans in this number? And we can say for sure they have created the death of at least 75,000 Americans. The number is actually larger than that, but we can at least say 75,000. How do we get that number? The number of deaths attributed to COVID is 106,000. Of that, we know for sure at least 62.75% were not COVID because the virus was not present. And we're logical thinkers, right? Virus not present,
Hmm.
virus could not have caused a
Hmm.
death. Okay. So we are looking at this at least 70,000 or so deaths that were not caused by the virus and were caused deliberately by government policy to terrify people and get them to submit to wearing 8 pairs of gloves, goggles, a kerchief, and whatever else.
So my 8 months supply of D3, vitamin C, and elderberry and zinc is a benefit to who I bought it from, but not to me.
Basically, because what's happening is the government is creating these deaths through its murderous
Oh man.
policies. And so what you need to do is understand what those murderous policies are and make sure you don't get subjected to them.
Damn.
And so you have people all running in the wrong direction for a remedy. So if the
Right.
government is killing people by putting them on ventilators, elderberry is not going to protect you from that. Okay? If the government is killing folks in nursing homes by starving them out and giving them
Right.
rotten food,
Damn.
you're not going to protect yourself by going to a nursing home and trying to sneak in some elderberry.
Oh boy. In our community said in our community, we would say that sister's cold, man. She is cold. That
Oh,
means you
I'm not
breaking it
cold.
down.
The process is the process. The process is the process. Now you got to decide, once you know the process, what
Man,
measures you're going to take to defend yourself. Now, let me tell you some simple methods. I mean, you could get a gun, but I don't think that's necessary. But stay away from government custody. Do not submit to government custody. Do not walk
mm,
into a jail, uh, a classroom, a hospital, an emergency room, a doctor's office. Stay away from government certified custody. Do not accept any medical intervention from the government, because they've got to create a second wave of deaths. So we see how they
mm.
created, they created the first wave. The first wave was totally manufactured by human intervention to create the deaths. We had the math here, numbers from the CDC, straight out there for everyone to see. You know, I'm not looking at some alternative doctors nonsense, self-induced research. No, 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 no. These are CDC numbers.
Mm. Okay.
And turn off the TV and look at the numbers.
Turn off the TV.
You ask, so where is that newscaster? What data is she basing that on? Well, we have the death count here. CDC is counting the deaths. Okay, there we go. We have the COVID cases. Okay, CDC is counting the COVID cases. But the inside information you need to know is even the government itself in New York State admits that in half of all the tests it gives, all of those positives, half of them, the virus was never there. The person was never exposed to the virus. And
So,
we
mhm,
know from what, so doctors are reporting that of the people they're treating successfully with this inhaled steroid, this guy is saying 60% are not even testing positive for the virus. So what he's saying is this illness, whatever you want to call it, 60% of those who have it are testing negative for the virus. In Wuhan, it was 25%. I'm taking the Wuhan number, I'm being generous. Only 25% of those with symptoms and death are virus negative. But the point is, there is no case here that this virus causes death, because you have excess death, and in 75% of those cases, the virus is not present. You have cases where the virus is present, in 85% of those cases, there's not even sickness, and less than a fraction of 1% of those cases is there even death. So this virus, you can't make a case that it's deadly.
okay, Doc, before we continue, please give the website as to how people can connect with the information you have. Also, there are people who would want to have consultations. What is the methodology of the other folks contacting you, audience wise?
You go to vitalitycapsules.com, vitalitycapsules.com. There you can get a free report on the medical miracle or the health miracle of turpentine. And also you can click the appointment button to get an appointment, and you can find out more about Vitality Capsules.
Very good. And how do people access the archives of Dr. Jennifer Daniels' podcasts, et cetera?
They are on that same page, so there are replays there.
Okay, and by signing up for your book, which is free, downloading your book, which is free, they will get announcements of your Monday, not Monday, but Sunday podcast. Is that correct? Just give us
Yes.
that.
Yeah. So you just go there and sign up, enter your email address, get your free report, and then that will put you on the list where we send you notices about the radio shows that I have. And I try to go over these numbers to help people understand. So if you don't understand what the problem is, then you cannot fashion a sensible solution.
Okay, so the process of understanding what the problem is, just give that
Go
for.
to the data. Go to the CDC website, go to the data. That's number one. Okay, so now we have the data. Then you have to say to yourself, in order for me to understand if this thing is deadly, I need to know, are there excess deaths? And the answer is yes, there are excess deaths. All right. The next question you need to answer is the virus present in these excess deaths? The answer is no. In at least 74% of the excess deaths, the virus is absent.
Mm.
So these excess deaths in the United States, to the extent that they exist, at least 75% of them are not caused by the virus. 74, 75% are not. They're not caused by the virus. So what are they caused by? Again, just a little information I gave you about the state of present day nursing home therapy. And this, by the way, is a dramatic change from nursing home therapy of, say, 10 years ago. Mom was in a nursing home 10 years ago because she broke a hip and she needed rehab. Okay, fine. We brought food into mom. We brought purified water into her. Uh, we changed her orders so that we stopped all deadly drugs. And mom's recovery was miraculous. They couldn't believe it. They were telling her, oh, you got to put a wheelchair ramp on your house and do this and do that. And they had mom calling contractors and ready to do $30,000 in renovations. I said, whoa, mom. Can't we change our rehab goals to being able to walk? Oh, okay, I'll ask. And so we were able, because we could send visitors. We had a tag team going with the kids and grandkids. We could monitor her progress. We could intervene and stop any deadly drugs. We were able to give her fresh, home prepared organic foods. Now, all the intervention is cut off.
Right.
So my same mother, if things were the way they are now, probably would not have gotten out of that situation alive, because the doctors were doping her up with narcotics every day on a schedule, whether she needed it or not. They were giving her, according to our standards, substandard water and food. And, she was basically being set up to die. And she was becoming senile, forgetful. It was just a downward spiral. But we stopped those narcotics. We got rid of her, fixed her constipation with some vitality capsules. We got her some good food, and she was walking. And she walked out of that place. They were shocked. They were absolutely shocked. She did not need, and does not need to this day, 10 years later, a wheelchair ramp on her house.
Wow. Okay, that point that you made about senile, that is reversed by nutrition in this
Absolutely.
particular.
In every case. In every case.
In every case, you're
Every
saying?
case. Every case. Well, you have to stop the drugs first, because there's no hope of reversing senility. Most drugs that doctors prescribe cause mental impairment.
No, wait a minute. Say that again.
Most drugs that doctors prescribe cause mental impairment.
You say no drugs prescribed by doctors.
Most.
Most.
MOST. Most. Yes, most. Most
Okay.
drugs cause mental impairment.
They cause mental. So when you find young brothers, and I'm saying young brothers in their 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
who are going into dementia and whatnot, that could very well be side effects of a diabetic medication, a high blood pressure medication.
Exactly.
So you're taking the importance here is knowing what the so-called side effects are of the medications that are being given to you or to a member of your family, as opposed to just taking it based on what the doctor says, take this 3 times a day. You got to know the so-called side effects. I had another
Well,
doctor, he said,
I think that's a bit absurd. Okay. Um, I think you should just stay away. Just
I'm
stay
sorry,
away. Forget
just
it.
stay away.
Trash it. Right. Here you are. You have excess deaths,
Wow.
and they're being caused by the medical system under the direction of the government. Really?
Period.
And you're going to go look there for a cure? You're going to go look there for a remedy? What's your problem?
Okay, going into healing and
Right.
health,
Right.
what is the importance of the colon in terms of a healthy body?
The colon, the intestine, you mean?
What
It
is
dumps
the
out. It
importance?
dumps the trash that, if retained in the body, causes the hypertension, causes the diabetes. So you've got to keep that clean and keep the colon flowing and emptying out the trash. Just imagine your own house. Imagine that you take the trash out once a month, maybe. Oh, you're laughing. You're laughing. You mean you think that's laughable, right? But there are people who insist that they're only going to poop once a day or once a week.
Man.
Right. I live here in the tropics where it's hot. You got to take the friggin' trash out every single day. If you don't, your house will smell like it.
Mm-hmm.
So but just because you guys live up north doesn't mean you can't take your trash out every single day. You should. Out of your body and out of your house. And your body 3 times a day. It's like, well, what if I only eat once a day? That's your business. You still need to poop 3 times a day. Get that trash out.
Okay, so the colon is key.
Yeah.
The what have been dominant cases or frequency of cases that you've seen for males, for females?
What do you mean the dominant cases?
In other words, what comes up quite often?
The
Uh,
first thing, male or female, is pain. Oh,
pain
got a little arthritis. Oh, I got a little touch of this. Oh, I got a little touch of that. That's the poop backed up and being deposited into the joints.
into the joints.
Right. That's exactly what it is. And this whole flat belly movement. Well, you don't want your belly sticking out. That's just a bag of poop that they're holding on to.
That stomach,
Exactly. Yeah.
that's out there.
Yeah, that's it. That's the stomach that's out there. Point to it. You can see it. It's just a bag of poo sitting there carrying it around.
Bottom line.
Straightforward. Ain't rocket science.
I'm going to the engineer before we let you go. Engineer, brother Doug, do we have any questions from the chat room or even from yourself? And this is Dr. Jennifer Daniels for anyone who just tuned in. Dr. Jennifer Daniels, you can see a lot of her work or presentations on YouTube. Doug, do we have anything?
Okay, Brother Leroy, I'm here.
You're looking.
Yes,
Okay.
and you know, the question is, when Dr. Daniels was speaking earlier about the government
Mm-hmm.
and the ventilators
Right.
blowing out people's lungs and them not giving people asthma medicine. The
Mm-hmm.
question is if there's a lot of people already. I think you were saying something about the inhalers was helping with the corona, and the doctors were told
No,
not
there.
to.
Yes, not to treat at all. Give nothing. Not nothing. Send them back home and see when when they get worse, when they get ventilator ready, have them come on in and get on the ventilator.
Talk about the that doctor who reported the steroid inhaler, so many puffs a day or whatever.
He didn't go through his dosage, but the point here is we have a harmless condition that is being treated in a way so as to create deaths. That's the thing to understand. And all of this treatment is being given at the direction and behest of the government. Doctors are being commanded to do this. And the doctors have to. They have no choice. Why? Because they're licensed.
But Dr. D, you also mentioned that the people were the doctors have their license, but you also mentioned that we heard another doctor came on the show and she told us that they have a list of who gets what medicine. Is that part of the kind of thing that you're talking about? How
You
they?
say a list of who gets what medicine. What does that mean?
She
Uh,
said
what
that.
what that what that
Right.
means? I'll interject here, Doug. There's this for high blood pressure, for example. There's a particular medication for high blood pressure that's almost specifically for Black people,
Oh, okay,
and
okay, okay. I understand. I understand. Okay,
yeah.
so what people don't understand is you got Black Lives Matter and talk about racism, blah blah blah. Doctors' education is racist. We are taught in medical school you give this drug to Black people and that drug to white people.
Mm,
We are actually taught that there is scientific bullshit evidence that Blacks do better with this drug and whites do better with that drug. There are
mm,
white doctors out there trying to figure out if a patient is Black or white if they have 75% white blood.
mm.
Because the doctors don't realize it's all racist nonsense. And these doctors are trying to do the right thing, but their training is biased and inaccurate and racist. And they don't understand that. They think that this training is enlightened. Oh, thank God they did research on Black people, so now we have answers.
So, doctor, are you saying that they are asymptomatic with regard to the racial, the implicit bias and filters that are they're trained that people train them with?
Who's asymptomatic? What are you talking
The,
about?
the doctors who they don't know, they can't see that they're carrying this kind of racist thing going out.
Exactly. They can't because they're trained that
Right.
everything taught to them is scientifically based, which of course is false.
Mm.
And they are trained that some expert actually did some research that showed this was more beneficial to blacks. And thank God now it can be more sensitive to the needs of black people.
So are they in fact asymptomatic in that regard? Would that be a way a
What's the
term?
word? You're using the word asymptomatic incorrectly.
I
Asymptomatic
know.
means a person has a disease with no symptoms.
I know
You-
I'm using it incorrectly. I'm using it incorrectly on purpose because it seems to me
Well, you're not
that that's how
communicating.
backwards they are. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
not
If you,
communicating with me. I'm not understanding you.
I
Okay.
got you.
Because
No, I
yeah,
understand. I'm using it backwards on purpose because it seems to me what you're saying is that they're going to school, they're
right.
thinking that they're getting information, and they're really getting diseased information. And they don't even know it.
Correct. Correct.
So yes, I am using it incorrectly only because we hear it all the time, and maybe it applies more than we think.
So
The
your
topic
remedy,
to use, if you want to use a term, it would be institutionalized racism. There's the
Correct.
term. The term is
Yeah,
institutionalized racism.
right.
And a lot of people don't believe it exists. White people don't believe it exists. I
mm,
say it does exist. However, as a black person in 2020, you can easily avoid institutionalized racism and even use it to your advantage. So,
mm.
yes, it's institutionalized racism, but once you understand that, then you realize the only reason to go to a doctor is to get a work note or approval for work or something like that. You don't go to a doctor to get a pill. That's nonsense.
Correct. You're right. I'm always amazed when the obviously the few times that you've been on, I'm always amazed at your perspective on simple things that are right in people's face, and kind of like you kind of make people look at the stuff that's right in your face, and don't look beyond the obvious. Just
That's
look at
what
the
I say.
obvious stuff.
Most people get in trouble because they ignore the obvious.
There you
I
go.
say there's plenty of obvious. Let's just handle the obvious. And guess what? A lot of stuff will take care of itself.
Well, one of the I got that from in the I'm a avid fan of Sherlock Holmes novels, and one of the things that Sherlock Holmes says to Dr. Watson when they came across a murder system and the guy has a hatchet in his head, and Dr. Watson was given all these esoterical things, and Sherlock Holmes looked at him and said, Watson, when it's obvious, why look beyond the obvious? When it's
Exactly.
obvious, why look beyond the
You can
obvious?
say why look beyond the obvious, but I say
Yes, when it's obvious.
at least look at the obvious. Consider
Mm,
the obvious, deal with it,
Right.
and then take a second look and see what we got.
mm.
Well, I appreciate it, Doc. Thank you so much for answering my questions. Back to you, love, brother Leroy.
Doc, the we're at the end, and vaccines. The strongest, one of the strongest statements that I've heard a black leader make regarding vaccines was done July 4th by Minister Farrakhan. He said it in an emphatic way.
Yes.
Don't take the vaccine. Don't go near it. To black people, including the African
I
nations.
will one up that. I will one up that. I don't care what color you are. You can say don't
Right.
take the vaccine, but no, if you leave it at that, you're going to miss a lot.
Come on.
Don't allow testing. Do not allow your skin to be penetrated. Do
Damn.
not, by any medical means, do not allow your nose even to be swabbed because they can implant a disease into your body.
Damn.
So do not allow that. You have to keep your body integrity. And if someone says, I want to swab your nose, you want to know, am I under arrest? No, I'm leaving. No, I'm leaving. Am I under arrest? No, fine. Let me get out of here. So you want to not allow yourself to come under the custody of the healthcare system or to allow your body to be in any way manipulated either by testing or intervention. Because if you do what Farrakhan says, oh, I'm not taking any vaccine, they're going to swab the nose, implant you with whatever. You're going to start getting symptoms and you're going to feel pretty darn lousy. And you're going to say, oh, that Farrakhan, I don't know about him. I should have got that vaccine. So
Yeah.
you have got to maintain your boundaries, okay? Like draw a line 3 foot around you. No healthcare personnel gets to invade that. Like, oh, you coming too close. Back up, back up.
Mm. Dr. Jennifer Daniels, last thing, have you had the occasion to see an interview, injection fraud on YouTube?
Is it an old one? Like it's like more than 5 years old?
No, no, this is,
No, I've not seen it. But again, anything your doctor injects in you, vaccine or not, is a fraud. Because one, the doctor doesn't even know what's in the shot.
wow.
It does not. I don't care what he's injecting you with. He doesn't know the additives, the binders, the preservatives, the colorings, the all the chemicals in that shot and how they can damage you. He does not have any of that information. He doesn't know. He literally does not know what he's injecting you with. He is going totally on faith.
Dr. Jennifer Daniels, was there something else, Doug? Okay. Dr. Jennifer Daniels, thank you very, very much. Once again, give your contact information. Vitality Capsules, give that.
VitalityCapsules.com.
Okay. My sister, thank you very much for being on the case. Straight with no chaser as usual. We look forward to it. The sister with the big smile, boy, the deadly smile. My sister, God bless you and your family.
Okay, thank you. Bye
All
bye.
right. All right. Brothers and sisters, we thank the Grand Houses Residents Association for allowing us the opportunity to do this show, the Wisdom Table, and we look forward to seeing you soon. In fact, when you look this up on YouTube, please send the link to other folks in your family and to your social circle. Thank you very much. God bless you all with a wonderful week. Man.
Grant houses community radio,
Straight,
the
straight.
soul of the Upper West Side.
Brother Leroy, you still there or you gone? Brother Leroy, are you still there? Brother Leroy, are you still there? Or are you gone? Brother Leroy. Brother Leroy. Calling Brother Leroy. Uh, calling Brother Leroy. Brother Leroy, you still there? Brother Leroy. You must have put down your phone. Okay, so, all right. We're going to finish that up, Brother Leroy. Okay. Okay, now he's gone. And we're going to do this. Okay, so that was Brother Leroy and Dr. Jennifer Daniels of Panama, the country. And she was, and Brother Leroy had a very long discussion about how things that you should avoid from the medical thing. And if you want to hear or see a replay of it or go over it again so that you can educate yourself, as always, you can go to our YouTube channel. And just go to YouTube and type in live at Grant, and it will come up, and you'll see Dr. Jennifer, and her name is Dr. Jennifer Daniels, and you just click on where it says Dr. Jennifer Daniels live at Grant, and you'll get her. Or you can go to our Facebook page at WHCR, Facebook.com/WHCR and you'll get all of the same shows are on there, and they're on there by date and time. So you just check the date today's, and the show was done, and then you'll get the particular show, and you'll be able to partake in all of the things that are available here at Grant Community Radio and East Home Community Radio. And so, all right, so we're going to, replay a interview that with Dr. Cornell West and Roland Martin, and so that people can take a look at that. So here we go. Kind of join in progress, okay?
Of a spirit, of a hatred, of an injustice, in this case of white supremacy. And the fact that it's a combination. You got a neo-fascist gangster in the White House, lying, tied to crimes. You got pandemic in place, so people do have extra time to think about some things rather than just get caught in their routine. And then you got public lynching. And then the hunger and the thirst for something real. All that coming together, and my brother, this marvelous manifestation of militancy on the streets in the name of a bearing witness in the face of white supremacy is a beautiful thing, though, man. It was unprecedented. Nobody could have predicted this. Nobody.
Right. Well, and I think I was having a conversation last night, and someone said that this thing just happened. I said, no, this did not just happen. I said, this was a buildup. This was a constant buildup. I said, you can go back to Eric Garner. You can go back to those deaths, John Crawford III, Rekia Border, Yana Jones. You can go back. You can Breonna Taylor, Mark Arbery. You can go back to Trayvon Martin. You can go back to Jenna Six. I said, you can just keep going back. I said, and then what you had was I said, for the 12-year-old kid, white kid, when Obama announced in February 2007, that white kid is now 25. And so you have all of those things. And I said, we can't overlook that for them, their first president was a black guy. And then the second time, 8 years, then a woman is a leading candidate. So the world that they have seen is totally different from previous generations. And it has unleashed these forces that, frankly, America and the world was not prepared for.
That's exactly right. The one thing I would add, though, brother, and you tell me what you think about this, is the intense Afro-Americanizing of young people of whatever color in hip-hop culture.
Yes, yes.
So from Tupac and Biggie all the way through Missy, all the way up to Jay-Z and Kanye. We know how confused our brother Kanye is, but I still love the brother, appreciate his genius. But the impact of the hip hop artists in shaping the sensibilities of a lot of those young activists who are out there, you see, because they've heard from NWA. They've heard from the various artists about police brutality. Now they get a chance to see the public lynching before their very eyes. And so in that regard, the role of the arts becomes very important in terms of shaping the sensibilities of these hundreds of thousands of folk, but disproportionately young folk who hit the street. Does that make sense, my brother?
No, it makes total sense, because again, but that's a part of these forces and how they're moving and how they're converging.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that, and Reverend Robert and I were talking about this here, and this probably was around the third week after the death of Floyd, and people kept talking about riots, they kept talking about looting, they kept talking about rebellion. Many of us were using the phrases reckoning. Then I went to my library, and then I grabbed a series of books. And I see your books behind you. And one of the first ones, I was trying to really think about this thing in a much broader and bigger way.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first thing I thought about was Du Bois' Black Reconstruction. Then I pulled out Eric Foner's book, Reconstruction, America's Unfinished Revolution.
Oh, yeah.
Then
and those two go together, hand in hand.
Yeah.
1935, 1987.
Then I pulled out Manning Marable's The Second Reconstruction and Beyond in Black America.
Oh, yeah.
And then Dr. Barber's book, The Third Reconstruction, Mondays. I have been saying that this is the third Reconstruction, that we should not look at this as sort of this short-term thing. We should look at this thing as the first Reconstruction was 12 years. The second Reconstruction, Marable has it 45 to 2006. I really have it from 54 to 68. I said, which lasted 14 years. we have to be thinking in terms of the third Reconstruction, because we have to, Reconstruction means literally reconstruct the nation, reconstruct the system, reconstruct the paradigm, not make small fixes. Your thoughts?
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I would turn to Du Bois's great text of 1921 called The Gifts of Black Folk. A lot of folk know the 1903 book, The Souls of Black Folk, but the gifts of Black folk. He says, what are the gifts? Well, two of the major gifts is the reconstruction of freedom, the reconstruction of democracy. But the big difference here, though, brother, is that this third reconstruction that you talked about, that Brother Barber talks about, and Brother Eddie Glaude talks about in the Third American Founding in his recent book on James Baldwin, Begin Anew, is that this moment of the decay and decline of the American empire, so that the impact of America around the world is lessening, not just its reputation, but its inability to present itself as something that it is not, which is this beacon of liberty. I mean, here, July 4th, right?
Right.
Frederick Douglass, celebrations of shame, national greatness, swelling vanity, boast of liberty, unholy license. America reigns without rival when it comes to revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy. That's Brother Frederick Douglass, July 5th, 1852. Well, now the chickens have come home to roost, though, brother. America has been revealed to be a place that cannot deliver basic goods and services to its own people. 40% of Americans living near or in poverty. It cannot protect rights and liberties when it comes to those dissenting voices that are being pushed to the side too often. And it cannot deliver purpose and meaning, because its commodified culture is so spiritually empty and vacuous, and it's all about getting over and manipulation and domination, rather than learning how to care and nurture for others and cultivate intimacy and love, which is what makes life worth living. That's why you got the drug overdoses taking place. That's what you got, the unbelievable sense of meaninglessness, what I call nihilism taking place, so that the culture of an empire, as well as this nation state, with all of its militarism around the world, AFRICOM in Africa expanding and so forth, dropping drones on innocent people. And then the greed, my brother, the greed beginning on Wall Street and spilling over, which is out of control. That's the difference between the second Reconstruction and the third one, because the second Reconstruction, America was just beginning to expand itself beyond the continental bounds, given its internal imperial expansion, looking for Guam, Puerto Rico, Philippines, and so forth. Now America is on the decline and decay. And you begin to see what Malcolm was talking about. You're going to reap what you sow. Sooner or later, those chickens going to come home to roost. And then the question becomes, how do we, in the belly of the beast, still love truth, beauty, goodness, love Black people enough to recognize that the reconstruction and the reawakening is the only option, or America goes under?
I was on this call last night, and this guy kept saying, well, just can we put a number on it? And he said, is it reparations? I said, no. I said, no, it's not. He says, well, can we put a number on it? I said, no. I said, it's an unknown number. And he was like, well, I don't understand. I said, see, here's the problem with this conversation. I said, how America always works is it's so like you take your car in and you don't really want to hear what the mechanic, just tell me how much it's going to cost.
Just money.
So they give you the number and you're like, okay, fine, fix it. I don't want to hear nothing else. What I explained to them is, I said, you can't put a number on this. And I know Bob Johnson came out, said 14 trillion, and I've seen other reports. I said, the reason I said I'm not going to put a number on it, the reason I'm not going to call it reparations, is because I said, this thing is so deep, it is so pervasive, it is so systemic, that if I put 14 trillion on it, once I get in, I may realize it's 40 trillion.
Yeah, 20. I was thinking 28, 45. Yeah.
I said, so what you want me to do, you want me to limit. So when we hit that limit, well, you said it was 14. Hey, here's 14. I said, no. I said, because you got to deal with education, you got to deal with housing, you got to deal with health. I started going through all these different categories. And I said, it's not that simple. And I think that's the problem with America. The impatience of America is like, look, just how much is it going to cost for y'all to go away? And I'm saying it ain't that simple to simply say how much is it going to cost. Because again, I'm sitting here with where do we go from here? Chaos on community.
Ooh, yeah.
King said, America, you ain't ready to write that big check. And he didn't put a number. He just called it that big check.
No, that's real though, brother. I mean, part of it is people always want to reduce these kinds of issues of such crimes against humanity to just monetary matters, because America is a business culture. It's a market-driven culture. It's a money-obsessed culture. But you are absolutely right to resist it. But I think what I would agree is that there's got to be some kind of repair. So some form of reparations is required. And so we're going to have a dialogue. And the dialogue's got to be a robust dialogue. We got to bring in William Gardy. You know what I mean? You got to bring in all the different voices. You got to bring in Sister Yvette and Tone and all the other voices that's been talking about reparations. But at the same time, you see, I want to talk about redistribution of wealth in addition to reparations.
Right. I mean? And that's what I'm saying.
That's not being a citizen. That's not just about being a descendant of slavery, Jim Crow, Jane Crow. That's just as an American citizen, they have a right to Medicare. That's what Brother Bernie's absolutely right. They got a right to a job with a living wage. They got a right to decent housing, and they got a right to quality education so they can get their minds and souls together to be fortitude, to love and respect ourselves enough to be willing to fight.
And that piece right there, again, because what it does is, and this is how I've laid it out. I said, we Black folks, we've never had full citizenship.
That's true.
I said we've had it technically. The fact that yesterday I did a whole hour special today on the Crown Act. Today is the first anniversary of the Crown Act. I said, if you want to understand why we're not at full citizenship, the fact that a law had to be passed that says you cannot discriminate on somebody's hair tells me there's no full citizenship. I said, if we had full citizenship, there would be no need for the Crown Act.
That's right.
There would be no need for us trying to get McConnell to vote on the bill the House passed that restores what the Supreme Court took out of the Voting Rights Act, declared unconstitutional. I said,